Thank you for joining us here. I hope you're, warm and cozy at where you are, comfortably enjoying the technology of being in the room, being in the virtual room, and being in the cloud, basically. So a lot of us actually using the cloud without even, acknowledging, that this is actually what we are using. So again, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to talk about the PPM in the Microsoft Cloud, Microsoft PPM in the Microsoft Cloud, obviously. And my name is Alex Rodolf. I am happy to be honored to be a Microsoft MVP in the business productivity and MS project area space. And happen to be a managing partner at the Trusted IT Group, the firm that specializes in the PPM, Microsoft PPM. All right, so enough about me. Here's what we're going to talk about quickly as far as agenda. Why the cloud, PPM in the cloud, how to move to the cloud, and what are those perks that we get when we get into the cloud. So as far as why to the cloud, and it's funny that then you mentioned that maybe in a year or two or some from now, there will be more cloud PPM solutions and more cloud solutions overall, and this is evidently the trend. However, the things are changing so quickly. We just need to keep up with what's best technology out there, providing the most value for our businesses. So cloud or not the cloud, I guess this is the cloud for now. That's the trend. This is where everyone is looking and finding that the most value is doing business in the cloud, giving you all kinds of benefits from doing this. So, a couple of things that from the Microsoft Microsoft CEO in this case, where just underline the fact that Microsoft is really, really focusing on that. I know there are other competition out there with Microsoft doing, providing cloud solutions and things like that. So this is the emphasis for the fact that Microsoft is really invested into this area, and I would say on the top leaderboard for the cloud providers, well, in this space. So that's the kind of backed up kind of message from the CEO saying, hey guys, we're not gonna drop this. We're gonna just keep this moving forward and keep investing into this. So some of the things about the big companies and some of the news basically that came out. Well, some of them recently, some of them not so recently. Well, some of them are not. So basically, they're big companies that pushing this out there, to pushing their application services, their IT services to the cloud. A lot of big companies like I don't want to necessarily call the names, but you see it on the screen, like big pharmaceutical, financial. Basically the Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500. The cloud notion, the cloud mania, if you will, is really, really, really out there. So we're basically trying to be on top of the latest technology and kind of keep it up there. So as far as Microsoft Cloud, and you can look at two major locomotives, if you will. One is Microsoft Azure, which is we'll quickly talk about this. This is not necessarily PPM specific. technology, but this is the big Microsoft Cloud solution there. It provides all kinds of virtual machines or cloud services, application cloud services, all kinds of databases, and everything that IT would per se need from the cloud is basically tied to the Microsoft Azure. So from the business productivity, this is where we are sitting in terms of Microsoft terminology. This is business productivity area where we're working with the Microsoft project portfolio systems. This is sitting around that Office 365 space. So within the Microsoft, there's Office 365 Cloud Office. Basically, the Microsoft Office on the cloud is out there, and PPM is basically a part of it. So Fortune 500 companies using Office 365. So 60% of them. So that's a huge number. It's a huge number, huge market share. So that's basically almost like saying, all the companies they have, well, there's obviously the Apple PCs, but Apple operations, the I operation systems, but Microsoft Windows is out there, the Windows 10, whatever is out there, and being perceived as a Microsoft domination of being on the enterprise. So this is the Office in the cloud is basically the denominator, the major business productivity product from Microsoft that pushes everything to the cloud. So and we're talking about emails, Exchange, talking about all kinds of Word, Excel. I mean, you can still have the regular Office on your laptop or desktop, but from the cloud perspective, everything basically, all of that is available in the cloud. So I'm not going to talk about Office 365 too much, but I just wanted to kind of set the stage so you understand. And feel free to ask me any questions about what's different. I mean, what's not, what's included in Office 365. Office 365 is a big product. There's a lot of things included in there, including the PPM solution, which we sometimes called, Microsoft call it Project Online. So, anyway, speaking of public versus private, there's a lot of information just popped up, so let me just start walking through this from the top to the bottom. I think we'll do that. Actually, no, let's do this from the bottom up. So at the bottom it says, the left portion says private cloud project server. So if you're somewhat familiar with Microsoft PPM solution, you're probably familiar first with the Microsoft project, which is desktop scheduling application, and the enterprise version of it is the Microsoft project server, which allows you to kind of keep all those projects into one central database, which is SQL Server, etc. So in order to you can still do that. Microsoft has recently released the Microsoft Project Server 2016. So for those clients that are still keeping their own infrastructure in place and would like to keep their servers completely isolated from the other networks, they can obviously do that. In order to have that, you may need to have your own SQL Server for that. You may need to have the Windows Server for that. You may need to have your Exchange for that. Well, not the Exchange necessarily on the premises, but there's a lot of infrastructure that you need to have in order to unfold the Microsoft Project Server on the private private server, and that could be done on some of the servers that you go and rent out from some of the data storage provider or hosting providers. That you can rent the SQL Server, you can rent the Windows Server and kind of build whatever we want on top of it. All right. Then let's talk about the hybrid cloud. So the hybrid cloud is basically when you hire a solution provider or hosting provider that specializes on hosting certain solutions. So there are certain providers that specialize in hosting project server. So these guys are actually technically on the cloud in terms of their servers and everything, but you basically have a full control over that infrastructure, which is in the cloud. So this is kind of, that's why it's hybrid, right? That it's kind of on private, it's kind of yours, but it's kind of not, So it's yours, but it's not. So sorry for the lack of the terminology, but that's basically you rent from somebody else, or you pay somebody else to manage those Windows servers, to manage those SQL servers, but you still have control over that environment, completely. How you can access the database, you can access the services that are running, you can stop them, you can customize them, you can do basically whatever you want with them, but you pay somebody else for managing those servers and maintaining those services for you. So that's kind of a hybrid way of doing it. And the public cloud. So public cloud, this is where we talk about so-called multi-tenant environment. So multi-tenant means there's a big infrastructure. And speaking of Microsoft Project Online, Microsoft Project Portfolio system in the cloud, we're talking about like a huge infrastructure, big infrastructure where there's a big kind of cluster SQL server on it. There's entire all kinds of services running on it, and all the clients of Microsoft that are using Microsoft SaaS, right, the software as a service component, they use this one big infrastructure, and this is the one that is maintained, backed up, the one that is redundant. There are like a number of different places in the world where the data is being redundantly saved and stored. So this information is very, very, very secure. I think Microsoft is the only cloud provider for the European Union. That's what I've heard. Please don't take me up on this, but that's what I've heard. And the Microsoft cloud has a separate government cloud for the government business. So the technology is there to make it really secure. You can make multi-authentication system in place. So there's a lot of security that I think there are people who can more comfortably talk about the security part of it. But speaking of the project online, we can talk about multi-tenant environment. So I can unfold a new project online environment basically in 5 minutes. So it's almost as easy as to go and sign up for Yahoo email account or Gmail email account. So that's you come online, you put it in, and you got your environment. Obviously, everybody knows how to use the email these days, but not everybody would understand and kind of right away get into the PPM tool and understand how to actually navigate and help. And that's where these companies like ours come into play and kind of walking through this process, explain, configure something, and kind of helping the organizations to get a hand on this PPM tool. So
moving forward, some of the things about the Office 365 platform. Quickly going through this infrastructure again: redundant data centers, 99% uptime, compliance. So the compliance I talked about the security compliance with the government, with the European Union, with the major financial institutions. So they've all been passed already, these verifications and security. So we haven't heard any major, any breaches or anything. So we're confident that this is coming along pretty well, and top Fortune companies are joining that, and we're following that. We're following their leads. The application platform on top of the infrastructure, again, the Office 365, and as I was saying, I was talking about the Exchange, the emails, about the storage. You got the basic account get terabytes of data per user, so storage is not a problem at this point. I think it's 1 terabyte, per user for the EU account, based on what type of license you have. Then the voice, you can call, using this platform. You can create all kinds of collaborational items. You can build your own apps. There's a lot of opportunities to have on top of this. Line of business applications, integrations, and we're very heavily working with other companies to integrate their agile environments into their PPM environment. So we have separate webinars for that. And again, the PPM solution, right? Where we have the ideas, collecting of those ideas, prioritization, strategy sessions and portfolio analysis. Basic, obviously, the scheduling, which is the core of the PPM, resource management, and all kind of visualization of the data using the reporting and governance, and the platform allows you to do that. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and a lot of opportunities for organizations to take advantage of. There are a lot of different type of connections. The extensive APIs and extensive integration capabilities are there, and the cloud solution is basically have extensive API that allows us to communicate between other systems, and the Project Online is one of them. As you would be surprised, there are a lot of connections and connectors to open source items, to competitors items. So we understand that Microsoft has not took over the world yet, but and we acknowledge that, and well, since we are a Microsoft partner, we're kind of working with other business applications that are talking to the Microsoft applications. So the cloud aspect of the PPM is so there are certain features, there are certain benefits, and the flexibility, the access anywhere, and things like that. I'm not gonna talk about this too much. You probably already kind of sensed this entire concept. One thing I want to talk about the PPM cloud features, and feel free to read this through, but what I'm going to be emphasizing here is the PPM, the Microsoft Cloud solution is basically a version of the latest project server solution that is out there, provided to you as software as a service. So providing you all the functionality, I mean like all of it, including things that actually added to the solution on a monthly basis. Even I think the releases are more often, but you got in hand the PPM solution that is allowing you to do the portfolio optimization, then the reporting, the the integration with other systems, using the add-ons from Office 365, and this is entirely wrapped up, with the strategy to move to the cloud as a Microsoft strategy, Microsoft roadmap for the next few years at least. So there are other cloud features, particularly for the PPM. Initiative start screen and then familiar interfaces with the original Microsoft PPM Microsoft project, basically. So you got to see all kinds of Microsoft project well-known features, and basically on the web, on your browser. So you probably already seen that concept of folks are moving some of their desktop applications to the cloud, and Microsoft is one of them. We're moving a lot of Microsoft project scheduling calculations and framework to the cloud, and basically in this case on the web to the browser. Again, anytime, anywhere access. You don't need to be on the VPN unless it's required by your organization. You basically can access your Microsoft PPM cloud wherever you can access your Microsoft Office 365. So in this case, if you can access your email, it means that you can fully access and fully be integrated with your PPM solution. All right. Well, there's a lot of features that I just didn't want to name and call them one by one. We'll distribute this after this webinar, so you'll get a chance to read through everything. And I would rather answer some of your questions if you have those specifically. So just to add from the custom programmability, again, the API is there, and API is available. We obviously have certain expertise in building custom solutions around the PPM for the cloud. So cloud solution is in no way limiting us from building those custom solutions. So if you may think of, well, if you have your own infrastructure and you can build your custom applications around it using the server, using the infrastructure, there's full platform available for us to do exactly the same, or actually do more of that using the cloud solution. So we can talk about details and how it's done, but the customizations, the limits, well, basically there are no limits. If you ask me, there are no limits which you can do in terms of customizations to the Office 365 and to the PPM cloud, to the PPM Microsoft Project Online. Okay, cross-platform compatibility. Again, this is browser-based on the cloud. So you can pull your browser. You now probably already know you can pull your browser anywhere on your iPad, on your Droid phone, on your tablet, on your Surface, on your on your Mac. Pull the browser, put your Chrome or Internet Explorer or anything else, and kind of have access to your PPM cloud. So it used to be an issue. Now it's not an issue. You may have an issue when you have like really old browser, or you may have like really old or restricted network when going outside of the network, like to the internet. You may have some restrictions on some specific scripts, but it typically does not require any add-ons. You just need a browser, you just need your internet, and you're good to go. So basically, that's what this is. There are other applications available for specific mobile platforms like iOS or Droid, and you can access those. The ones you see here on these mobile devices, This is a sample from our dashboard, Power BI app, where we pulled some of our reports on the using the Power BI app. So it's coming along very easy to pull these reports and have access to these reports. All right. So what does it take to be in the cloud? So we talk about, yeah, it's cool, let's be in the cloud, let's get to the cloud, but let's say, how do we really get there? So we can get there by just saying, you know what, forget everything that we did before. Well, let's not forget everything. Let's just take everything, all the best that we did before, and bring it to the cloud. So start a new solution in the cloud. So configure the cloud solution and onboard that PMO on that cloud solution. So this is basically starting from scratch. Okay. Well, we can, you say you can always do that, but we want to kind of leverage what we already have a little bit more. So another option is to existing on-premises solution to the cloud. So migrate the existing solution to the cloud, build the solution, migrate PMO data. So basically you're saying that, okay, so we have the on-premises solution right now. We want to move to the cloud. How do we do this? So let's build that, prep that cloud solution, migrate the data over there, migrate the configurations, migrate the business process over there, and then onboard the team on that new PMO cloud solution. So that's number 2, and then number 3 is kind of mixed approach, where you when you complete the projects that are already in flight. It's like you're not going to change the plane when you're already flying, right? So you let these planes land in their at their destination airports, and then basically start a new process when they take off next. So you have some new projects being worked on on that new system, and you have the others just complete on the old system. This may or may not work for you based on what's your sensitivity of the business, how long are these projects, and so on and so on. So, but there are these options that you can have in order to move to the cloud, and we can provide all kinds of guidance and support in moving to the cloud. Okay, so 5 steps. And we typically, over the time when we work with the folks to move around and move to the cloud, we came up with these five steps, and you can break it down into more, but here are these 5. The assessment. So let's just take a look. What do we need? How we need to take a deep dive into like what's really needed. Conduct the investigations and come up, conduct the whole kinds of compatibility tests and everything to make sure that what we're looking for to do is going to work for us. So makes sense, right? Then select the approach. Say, how do we want to do this? We want to start from scratch. We want to deploy it, one by one. We want to do it mixed version. Then configure the PPM solution, and then migrate and load the data, and then adopt the PPM. So I just wanted to kind of lay it out for you, quickly. But basically, again, assess, select the approach, configure, either migrate or load the existing data, or just start using it from that very day that you decided to go live, and then adopt and continuously improve your business processes with your system, so the technology would get you further as far as value that you bring into the business. All right, and well, that was it. That was the last slide. Thank you. So Dan, yeah, here's the slide. We can get to us and some of our information. So, Dan, did you wanna? Do we have any questions? I know that we probably maybe a few minutes ahead of schedule, and I know that you had something in mind, Daniel, to go with everybody else. Um, hey, Dan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We did have a question that came in through an email. The question was focused around a conversion path. Can you comment on this individual says that they would want to know what would be a typical conversion path from Microsoft Project 2010 to Microsoft Project Online. How would you address that?
Well, I mean, I guess we don't have a chance to ask you like a clarification question about the question, but what I'm understand that the question is like, how do we really migrate from 2010 to the cloud?
Yeah.
So there are several ways to look at it from perspective of what do you, again, the approach here is actually making a lot of difference. So if you decide to migrate the data, then that's what you want to do. If you decided to start new projects, then that's another thing. But I guess you're looking forward to migrate it and load the data. So in this case, you may need to run some of the technical procedure to look at to get into the database of the 2010, and then use some of these technical procedures to load this information into the cloud, which would load all the schedules and parameters. And there's also the procedure to migrate the configuration. So there's it really depends on how many of those additional configurational items that you have that you want to bring over. Answer to this question is this: it could be very simple, it could be very complex. The more complex you have 2010 set up, the more and if you do want to bring this all complexity over to the cloud, so the whole migration will look a little bit more complex. But if you have some sort of a basic configuration of 2010, a basic configuration is a very easily very easily to be migrated to the cloud. So there are tools out there that we can use in order to bring this over, or as a matter of fact, you can use it yourself. To some of the simple configurations, you can use minimum help from us or from anybody else to move these projects over to the cloud. So there's project move, and there's kind of all kinds of other data to move along with the project, because the project server server holds not just the schedule, but project server also holds the issues and risks and documents and sites, and moving that kind of adds to the complexity. So it could be very easy, but could be cumbersome based on your configuration.
So Alex, Irene just followed up to that question, and she was actually the originator of that question. Just to get more specific, how would you? Her question is, can you speak to the effort involved in migrating the current PDPs and workflows?
So in as far as PDPs are fairly easy to migrate. The concept has not changed, dramatically. The current PDPs are the current PDP, especially the default PDPs, are easily reconfigurable in the cloud. So that's a configurational task. Shouldn't take too much time. As far as so the PDPs and the workflows. The workflows in 2010 you had to do the Visual Studio to build the workflow. In 2013 or the cloud or 2016, you don't have to do that. So you basically would need to take that logic and build this into the workflow for the cloud using the SharePoint Designer. So, and that's the tool of choice. You don't have to have a programmer to do that. I mean, you would need some of the understanding of the basic steps and in the workflow, but you can design the workflow in the SharePoint Designer. In order to move that from 2010 to the SharePoint Designer, you may need to do some look into the requirements, looking into the documentation, and looking into the actual workflow and all the steps and the governance, and in order to recreate that in the SharePoint Designer. For the SharePoint Designer, you may need, for the workflows, you may need to build those workflows using SharePoint Designer. And unfortunately, there's no an easy button to just convert them into the cloud version of the workflow. So that's that.
Does that answer your question, Irene? I think that's a really great question.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, unfortunately, you would have to write them, kind of build them in the designer. But the good thing is much easier to build it in the designer. So like a simple workflow, you can build in a couple hours. So as opposed to in 2010, you had to use the Visual Studio to build the workflow, then to deploy the workflow and make sure, cross your fingers and make sure, and kind of hope it's work. But you can really build a simple workflow very quickly without opening the studio.
Another question, just to keep it moving. There was a question that came in through an email that I think it's kind of generic. If you ask me, it's not very specific, but I think that others would be interested to hear you kind of talk about this one. So could you talk a little bit about how cost and schedule management is done in Project Online? So cost and schedule management are two separate issues, but how is cost management handled in Project Online and schedule management in Project Online?
So speaking of, let's just talk about the schedule management quickly. So the schedules were schedule. This is where the project, this is where the Microsoft PPM started, right? So it started with the desktop, scheduling MS Project, which is by far the most popular tool. My most popular project management tool after Excel, believe it or not. So from the scheduling perspective, this is probably what the Microsoft PPM is really famous for is using that scheduling engine, the scheduling management. So you can build fairly complex dynamic schedule where you'll be able to build all kind of dependencies and links and legs and kind of calculate all kinds of metrics like earned value, etc. So that's there. Okay. When you talk about the cost, and I specifically mentioned earned value, this is where it start overlap, and I think this is really a bigger discussion about the cost management overall, but from the budget perspective and from the budget tracking perspective, from the project cost perspective, there's a number of ways that the cost information is baked into is available to be managed within the schedule, and there are different. Well, there are a lot of different ways of doing this, and some of the folks are looking for the cost that is driven off of the resources that are assigned to the project. Some of the folks are looking for the cost management from the overall budget perspective and comparing the actuals coming from timesheets. Or, there's a lot of different ways that you can include the cost into your kind of PPM project formula, or in your project. You can put the cost, baseline the cost, track the cost, either at the high level by project, at the project level, or by task or by resource level. And different companies have different processes and different requirements to track this cost in different levels. And the project online is showing you different ways of how you can actually do that. The part of the cost analysis and cost tracking, and big part of the portfolio analysis. So there are typical cost constraints that are used within the portfolio analysis that allowing you to basically look at your project portfolio that is tied to dollar amounts, and kind of letting the steering committee to make the call and say, okay, this is what we're going to do with this project, or this is what we're going to do with this critical issue that is causing us, X amount of dollars or other currency. So I hope I didn't beat around the bush too much, but again, this is really big topic, and if I can take more exact question about what exactly you're looking for to do, maybe we'll be able to come up with a better answer. But I hope it answers somehow.
Yeah. There was another question that came into an email, and when we talk to our clients, they always have a very similar type of question. So could you quickly just explain to everyone just what the resource engagement feature in Project Online allows?
Sure. So the resource engagement is, I can probably explain it using the scenario versus just explaining the feature. So the scenario is, for example, where you have organization and you are dealing with, let's say you're dealing with different vendors, right? Typically, right? When you are dealing with vendors, you need to sign up, some SOW documentation where you say, okay, we need these guys to do this type of work, so we'll hire, X amount of people to do that, and then you build this request. You basically start adding these requests as a resource manager to your organization, asking the certain resources to be assigned to this particular engagement. And as any other SOW, as any other engagement, even within the organization, without that kind of procurement process in place, these engagements have start and finish dates. So let's say I need these 2 people from your team for my project, and I need them for like 3 months. Right, and you build this engagement and you say, okay, create an engagement and add this 3 people or 2 people, for the 3 months period as an engagement, and that's something that is allowing me to have this. And then there's a resource manager who actually says, yeah, you can take these people. So there's some negotiation process going on, but the resource engagement feature allowing you to kind of track all these. Basically, all these, trades, all these negotiations of these resources within your company and within the vendor company. So each engagement would have the start and finish date. Each engagement would have, certain either hours assigned to this person, or allocate this person at certain percent completion, at certain percent, because you may say, I want these 3 people. 50% of their time on my project, because the other 50% of their time is going to be dedicated to something else. So this is basically, in a nutshell, This is the tool that allowing you to manage this negotiation process of competing resources within your company, allowing you to kind of establish the governance, saying that if someone is requesting some other resources, there's some governance body on top of it that is arbitrating basically this conflicts and saying you guys cannot have these people because these people are already taken by these guys, and you manage this by this resource engagement requests. And asking managers or PMs or folks that need to do the project, asking them to request those resources through those resource engagements, and that allows me to allows the overarching resource management governance body of the organization to actually manage these requests. I don't know if I made any sense, but I was doing my best to explain it. Okay, so
No, it's good. It's good. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely easier to explain in a scenario such as that. So once again, thanks so much. We really appreciate everyone joining. I will be following up and sending out the presentation deck along with the recording of the presentation so that you can share it internally if you would like. And thanks again. Everyone have a great holiday season.